What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the Sixers Digest YouTube channel. My name is Barnard, as always, and in today's video, I want to talk a little bit more about the potential Zach LaVine to the Sixers trade. There's been a ton of rumors, ton of reports, and ton of mock trades tying both the Sixers and the Bulls in this potential deal. It does feel like the Bulls are destined to blow up sooner rather than later, and Zach LaVine is one of the prime targets who get traded out of there. But I want to talk a little bit in this video about why my tune about a potential trade has changed a little bit. That I haven't been super pro Zach LaVine in general, and my tune on that has changed a little bit. So I want to get into each of that, and I'll kick things off by just starting with some of the initial reports. That we have this from Shams Charania of The Athletic that says the Chicago Bulls finally appeared ready to rip the Band-Aid off. Shams Charania of The Athletic reported Tuesday that both the Bulls and guard Zach LaVine are increasingly open to exploring a trade, and Charania mentioned the Los Angeles Lakers, Miami Heat, and Philadelphia 76ers as teams that were expected to have a level of interest. Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports added Friday that, quote, LaVine and his representations hold several preferred landing spots, including the Sixers, Lakers, and Heat, along with the San Antonio Spurs and Sacramento Kings. However, Fisher warned that the Sixers aren't likely to move swiftly on LaVine if they do at all. So that is the biggest piece of, I think, the potential of these Sixers on missing out on LaVine, is if they are still content with sitting back. And this isn't just contentment, and this isn't just the Sixers doing their due diligence, that there is a notable roadblock there. And to get in that specifically here, it says, the immediate roadblock to trading for LaVine is that Marcus Morris, $17.1 million, Nicholas Batum, $11.7 million, Robert Covington, $11.7 million, and Kenyon Martin Jr., $1.9 million, can't be aggregated with any other contracts until January 1st. LaVine is earning $40.1 million this year, so the Sixers would need to send out at least $31.9 million in salary in any trade for him. Joel Embiid, $47.6 million, and Tobias Harris, $39.3 million, are the only two currently tradable contracts they have in LaVine's range. So that is a significant issue, is reaching that total. And that's what complicates NBA trades as a whole, is there is this financial component. That you can make a real argument that the finances are what hold up much more deals than the intentions. That, in theory, players that have this worthwhile value, and obviously I don't want Tyrese Maxey traded by any means, but Tyrese Maxey is a guy on still his rookie contract, making under $5 million. I believe it's right around $2 million is around the range that he's making. But the bottom line is, for the production that he puts out, is worth so much more than that. So trying to find a potential max for that, or a match for that in a trade, is really difficult, because you need to pair it with bad contracts such as the Marcus Morris one there, which is he's not a $17.1 million of production in a player at this point in his career, but you can attach that to smaller salaries. And in the means for this specific deal, likely the Bulls are intending on getting a package full of picks and young players, something along lines. It does feel like a rebuilding mode. So this is something that the contracts won't mean a ton for, that they want one-year deals like Marcus Morris, that we can take the $17 million for this season, get him off the books moving into the offseason, and the draft picks and young players are what we really want in return. So that is why players like that are important to getting deals done. That was one of the holdups in the James Harden trade as well. But that January 1st date is a notable complication in this. Now, we know we have over a month until that point, that while it is approaching fairly quickly, there's still some time. And the Sixers have taken this stance throughout, and I agree with the stance as far as let's sit back and let's figure out what this roster is. We're now 15 games in the season, almost 20% through the NBA year, which is crazy to say already. And I think we're beginning to have a greater understanding of what this team is, what it's missing, and how far away it is from being a championship contender. And just to reinforce this overall topic here, that this was also from the initial report from Jake Fisher here that says, quote, it has always seemed more likely the Sixers continue to evaluate this roster in the context of Maxey's rise into all-star form and perhaps all-NBA consideration before acting too swiftly to acquire a player and eliminate the precious cap space that Philadelphia values ahead of next summer, which no other contender, in the Sixers' view, should be able to match. So that is a key storyline here, and something that I have agreed with, that I thought it was the best case scenario for the Sixers, that they were able to get this James Harden deal done. You have these assets to sit on and figure out what the team's missing, and then have time to strike when the iron's hot. Now, Zach LaVine is the first big name, the first potential star to pop to the marketplace. And I want to start by saying I think the mindset behind chasing stars has become very overrated in today's NBA. That I don't think the route to winning championships in today's NBA is getting the biggest names, throwing them on the same team. It just does not work. Look at what the Denver Nuggets are doing with Nikola Jokic, with Jamal Murray, who are obviously their two superstars, and then you find the correct pieces to surround them with. But the best case scenario is when those best pieces to surround them with are also these high-level stars. And I think there is a world where that's what we're looking at with Zach LaVine right now. Now, one of the reasons that I specifically think this is Tyrese Maxey. I have pounded the table and gloated and could not be happier with everything that I've seen from Tyrese Maxey this year. My concern is that there's going to be a wall that he's hit. And we're starting to see it in games. His efficiency numbers have sunk down a little bit. This is nothing to be concerned about in the long run. These are part of the growing pains. And frankly, the fact that he has pushed through so many of these already is way more encouraging than any possible concern you could have. But it's a difficult task. It is one thing to be this splash in the pan surprise that can light a team up when they say, whoa, who was that guy midway through a game? It's a whole different story when you are the number one name on the scouting report. And especially on nights when Joel Embiid's not there, this is Tyrese Maxey's team to run. He is the system. He is the guy getting things done there. So for Maxey specifically, I, for the first time, have seen some tired legs in him. That he is leading the NBA in minutes as a whole. Look at that, with 38.4 minutes per game, ahead of Fred VanVleet, Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, and then Shaedon Sharpe and Tobias Harris, both tied for fifth there. So Tobias right in the same running at 36.5 minutes per game there. But my concern with Maxey is, I get it. He's 23, he's young, he has more energy than 99% of human beings out there. But there does come a point where it's a limit. And Nick Nurse, one of the negative parts of his reputation has always been overplaying players. That one of the phrases that he continues to bring up at the pregame press conferences is he said, my mindset is you pitch your ace today and you pray for rain tomorrow. The issue with that mindset is, unfortunately, there are no rainouts in basketball, Nick Nurse. And there's also a guarantee that this team will play 82 games. That there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That the games are going to happen. So while I appreciate him trying to win every single game and having that mindset, there also needs to be some realization. And I am thankful this has not bled into the management of Joel Embiid because he has some unique body circumstances and injury concerns that should be handled appropriately, and those have been. But to take a load off Tyrese Maxey's plate, the Sixers have to bring in a legitimate ball handler and a guy that can pick up the offensive slack when he's not on the floor. That is the reason Maxey's playing so much. And the results are there. I mean, if we want to look at the best lineup combinations the Sixers have had so far, Tyrese Maxey is in the top 4 lineups and 11 out of the top 12 that he is on the floor from. And I get it. This is still small sample size. This is something that will probably mix itself up throughout the length of the year. But that totally matches what we're watching on the floor. That is a night and day difference when Tyrese Maxey is the guy out there running the offense, being the guy in control, being that offensive punch, and it really looks lost, even with guys like Patrick Beverley, who mostly has been solid, although I have some concerns with his shooting, and he hasn't been quite as what I hoped him to be, even with a guy like Patrick Beverley stepping up, or DeAnthony Melton, who has not looked good in a role where he's had to play make. He's played much better since they've taken those responsibilities off his plate, and he's simply operated as a scorer, defense-first guy in a more natural role for him. But there's not that many options for other guys can do that on this roster. In comes Zach LaVine. That there's been a lot said about Zach LaVine. Some fair, some not. That this situation in Chicago absolutely is not working. But he's a good player. That it should not get lost in everything. He is not this reckless shot chucker. I get it. It has not translated to winning in the way that it's hoped. But he's still a very good player. And to look at his stats specifically, through his career, 20.5 points per game, 4.0 rebounds, 3.9 assists. His three-point numbers have been a little bit up and down, but for his career, 38.2% on the from beyond the arc on 5.8 attempts per game. So numbers have increased up to 33.9% so far this season. And flashback to 2020, 2021, and he was shooting 41.9% from behind the arc, which was the best year of his career. That on 8.2 attempts per game, so some pretty high volume there. As far as what I like about Zach LaVine and how it pertains to the Sixers, number one is he is a capable ball handler, but the biggest factor and the little asterisk next to that is he's not a guy that has to be a ball handler, that he's very comfortable playing off ball, and his off ball movement is very underrated, that if he's willing to buy into like a Klay Thompson-like role where he does this off ball movement where we're setting pin downs and back screens for him to create his looks, that is perfect for the Sixers team, that they need a guy capable of that. He's not a guy that I believe will come in and just take the ball out of Tyrese Maxey's hands because I absolutely do not want that. But he is a guy that can provide some release, and Maxey is very capable as an off-ball scorer as well, and we've seen that in several different situations now. So Zach LaVine might be a nice balance there. The defense is a legitimate concern. That is probably the only biggest, point of negativity that I will roll over and admit to for Zach LaVine. That he is a guy who's never going to be a plus defender, but my pushback to that being that the Sixers were a very passable defense with James Harden in it, and I will go to bat and argue that Zach LaVine's a much better defender than James Harden. And the reason that this has kind of kept me away from Zach LaVine and why I'm kind of swaying here is I was prioritizing the defense from a standpoint of I don't know who's going to guard Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown or Giannis when push comes to shove, when we get to this point in the playoffs, those are some high-level wing scorers, perimeter guys that I just don't feel great about. Nicholas Batum and Tobias Harris being the Sixers' best options to match up with them. So that is why my mind has shifted towards an OG Anunoby type player. And the biggest thing and the biggest asterisk that I believe is in Daryl Morey's mind as it pertains to Zach LaVine is the contract. That we've heard time and time again of Daryl Morey prioritizing that he wants to have this cap space heading into the offseason. To look at LaVine's contract specifically here, it is a lot. That he's making $40 million this year, $43 million next year, $46 million in 25-26, and then has a $48.9 million player option for the 26-27 season. That's a lot of money. There's no doubt about it. But I guess what my mindset is, you have to for sure have the conversation with Tyrese Maxey and with Joel Embiid. But is it a bad thing that there you have that commitment, that you're guaranteed to have this caliber of player for those extended seasons? I understand the flexibility and the logic behind having this cap space, having the freedom to make these decisions and look to maximize it in a way that other contenders will not be able to due to the financial situation. But what's the track record for getting these high-ticket free agents to come to Philadelphia? It is not very good. That if you want to dig through and find the best possible free agents that have come in, you dig down the list, and Al Horford is probably at the top as far as recent memory and what has happened with the Sixers. I just don't have that much confidence that even with Joel Embiid, even with Tyrese Maxey, there's so much turnover and so much weird storylines that have come out of Philadelphia. Bring that into the fact of some guys not wanting to play under the pressure cooker that is the media and the fans, that this all comes with playing in Philadelphia. I just don't have that much confidence that they can execute on this grand plan. And to the other part of that, are we sure there's going to be players better than Zach LaVine available in free agency? I mean, James Harden's going to be at the top of the list, maybe Kawhi and Paul George, but I can't imagine that they're not having the truck backing up with as much money they can fit on it to their houses start free agency. Guys like Klay Thompson, do I want Klay Thompson more than Zach LaVine at this point in his career? Probably not. Even it's just not as encouraging of a list when you kind of look at it. That in theory it sounds great. So maybe in actuality we take a step back and look at it of what is the guarantee if we go in all now? What if we know we can commit to Joel Embiid, Zach LaVine, and Tyrese Maxey being the trio for the next at least several years? That might be the right move. And again, I'm not saying push things right now. I'm not saying you need to dial up the Bulls front office and say we need to get this trade done by the end of the night. In fact, that January 1st deadline is something to note for sure. But if it reaches that point and the Sixers are still in the hunt, look as currently constructed, I'm seeing these same issues with them needing another ball handler and another scorer as a whole, a guy that can get a bucket when it matters most, that we're not just relying on Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid, of course. Maybe that is the move. So I guess my mindset has shifted a little bit at this point, that I do see a world where Zach LaVine to the Sixers is that missing piece. Is it the one-and-done move? No. There still needs to be some defensive help. There still needs to be other things tied. But I do like the concept of Zach LaVine playing next to Tyrese Maxey, being that bridge with Joel Embiid. And by the way, all these guys are pretty cool with each other. That will not be an issue as we've seen in the past. That Zach LaVine has the connection to both Clutch Sports and New Balance, as does Tyrese Maxey. They've done some commercials together through that. Zach LaVine's also trained with Joel Embiid plenty, and I'm sure there's much more clear intel with talking to them as far as what their exact relationships are. But these aren't guys that are just kind of a loose cannon that you're going to throw into the mix. That they do know each other, and LaVine has a much easier going personality compared to guys like James Harden and Ben Simmons that this franchise has already gotten through. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. What is your mindset for Zach LaVine right now? Do you think there's a chance he's the missing piece to take this team to a championship contender? Because I'm starting to believe that is the case. Once again, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I'll talk with you next time right here on Sixers Digest.